Olathe West, Emma Dugan from Mays High, Ansley McGee from Olathe North, Emily Streeter from Salina South, Haley Loya from Garden City, and Miss Katie Murphy, Assistant Director of Theater and Troop Director at Topeka West High School and Troop. In Kansas alone, over 20,000 students participate in theater each year. These young talents, supported by passionate teachers and family, bring it to life, an average of 5 productions per school annually. That's more than just performance. It's the testament to the dedication and creativity of our youth. Consider the numbers. As you know, I do like numbers. Over 250,000 Kansans attend these school performances each year, contributing to a box office impact estimated at $1.3 million. But theater is more than just the numbers. It is an experience that transcends our daily lives, transporting us to worlds of imagination and exploration. It is a catalyst for strengthening society and teaching life lessons. Students who participate in the theater have higher levels of attendance, literacy, GPA, oral communication skills, time budgeting skills, and a litany of numerous other applicable and technical skills. Former First Lady Michelle Obama once said, "Arts education isn't something we add on after we've achieved other priorities like raising test scores and getting kids into college. It's actually critical for achieving those priorities in the first place." This sentiment rings true as we witness the countless benefits of theater education. You see, folks, while demand grows for more graduates with industry-recognized credentials, and we continue to see Kansas University sacrifice important art majors and performing arts for more profitable credentials, we need to remember, as I said last year, that we should not forget the importance of nurturing creativity, empathy, and human connection. Let's remember that our state was built on the resilience and ingenuity of hardworking individuals willing to face adversity and harsh climates, taking on creativity and also taking on the risk. Theater in our schools embodies ad astra per aspera, to the stars through hardship. Therefore, on this Theater in Our Schools Day, I ask that my House colleagues join me in welcoming the Kansas thespians and all the teachers, students, and families they represent by either giving your own jazz hands or a round of applause. Mr. Speaker, I request my words be spread across the journal.
Without objection, so ordered. Senate Bill 430 appears on the consent calendar for the first day. Is there objection? Seeing objection, Senate Bill 430 will be removed from the consent calendar and placed on general orders. The Speaker recognizes the Majority Leader for a motion to resolve into the Committee of the Whole.
Mr. Speaker, I move the House resolve itself into the Committee of the Whole for the purpose of considering those items under the heading of general orders.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye. All opposed, no. The ayes have it. The motion carries. The Speaker appoints Representative Neely to chair the Committee of the Whole.
Good morning, buddy. the first item of business is SB 195. For the purpose of carrying SB 195, the chair recognizes Representative Waymaster.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senate Bill 195 is actually the companion bill on the Senate side for House Bill 2191 that we actually passed out of this chamber last year with a vote of 122-0. And that is just simply authorizing the Children's Cabinet to form a 501c3 for fundraising purposes for the Dolly Parton Imagination Library Book Gifting Program. This is one provision that we needed to pass in regards to making the Dolly Parton Imagination Library gift program a statewide program, so all children ages 0 to 5 can benefit from the library program that was instituted by country star Dolly Parton. I have to say that I am quite fond of this program, as my 5-year-old son, he just graduated out of the program when he turned 5 in September of 2023. And my twin sons are enrolled in the program as well. We've been very fortunate that we have a local foundation that has paid for the gifting program from the Dolly Parton Imagination Library in our area of the state. But there were areas back in 2021 where they did not have any type of foundation or any type of entity that was paying for the program. And so by making this a statewide program, we have basically given this opportunity to all children throughout the state of Kansas, 0 to 5. When we started the initiative and having a statewide program for the Dolly Parton Imagination Library in 2021, there were roughly about 40,000 individuals or children that was enrolled in the program from ages 0 to 5. And I just received a note that by today's estimates, that has increased from 40,000 to 74,720. So by establishing this 501c3 in statute, because we actually did do it in the budget bill last year, and that's what allowed us to become a truly statewide program for the Dolly Parton Imagination Library. This just codifies that in statute, and as many of you recall, once we hit the statewide program and the threshold, actually Dolly Parton came to the state of Kansas in August of 2023, and I know many of you were at that event. And it was a great event, and many of us got to meet Dolly Parton in person. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I would stand for questions.
Does any member desire to speak to the bill? The chair recognizes Representative Helgerson.
I don't have any questions for the carrier. I just urge you to support the bill. Thank you.
Does any other member desire to speak to the bill? Seeing none, Representative, you may close.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move that when the committee rises and reports that it passes Senate Bill 195 favorably for passage.
You've heard the motion by Representative Waymaster to report Senate Bill 195 favorable. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. Motion passes. The next item up for business is Senate Bill 307. For the purpose of carrying the bill, the chair recognizes Minute. You guys changed on me. Representative Hoffman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senate Bill 307 would change current law in the Kansas Vice Addiction Act. Right now, current law says that only not-for-profit entities can apply for grants through the Kansas Vice Addiction Fund. This bill would change that to allow for-profit private entities could also apply to the review board to apply for these grants. In committee, we also did change it to allow for
Representative, we need you to do the adoption of the committee report.
Yeah, how many times have I done this? And thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move the adoption of the committee report.
You've heard the motion. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. Ayes have it. You may continue.
I was just testing you. All right. We also added in that the board members of this board could also get paid subsistence allowance, mileage, and other expenses when attending the meetings, unless they are already being paid for those meetings through their respective entity that has appointed them to that board. So with that, I will stand for questions.
Does any member desire to speak to the bill? The chair recognizes Representative Helgerson.
And I urge you to support this bill.
Does anybody else desire to speak to the bill? The chair recognizes Representative Ruiz.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Can I ask the question of the carrier of the bill?
Hello.
The for-profit substance abuse agencies, organizations, are they required to see people that have Medicaid?
I'd have to look at the bill to see what the exact, I don't know.
Okay, that's an important thing to find out.
Okay, I'll find
Thank
out.
you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Does any other member desire to speak to the bill? Seeing none, Representative, you may close.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. When the committee rise and reports, I would move that Senate Bill 307 be moved favorable as is.
You've heard the motion by Representative Hoffman to report SB 307 as is. Favorably, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. Motion passes. The next item up for business is HB 2648. For the purpose of carrying HB 2648, the chair recognizes Representative Wassinger.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. There were committee amendments. I move the adoption of the committee report.
You've heard the motion. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The motion passes. Committee report is adopted. Please continue.
Colleagues, House Bill 2648 is a rules and regs bill, and it asks for an economic impact statement that indicates more than $1 million will be spent by taxpayers and businesses in Kansas and doing all the implementation costs. The biggest problem we have in rules and regs is they're not putting any kind of economic impact report at all. So we have no idea what all they're doing. So this bill will require them to fill out an economic impact report and also then come to the legislature. The director of the budget will say this goes over the amount, and then they'll come back to the legislature to see and vote on whether or not we should go ahead with the rural reg that costs the state of Kansas, the people of Kansas, over $1 million in 5 years. Really, only about 5 departments ever have anything that goes over this amount. I'm talking about KDADS, KDHE, KDOT, Wildlife and Parks, and the Board of Indigent Defense Services, which I'm not very familiar with, but there are 20 times the amount of rules and regulations that are always passed in this building in the United States over the laws that we pass. This is a problem. It needs to have people come back and look at it. We need to be seeing how much we're costing the state of Kansas. We are highly regulated in this state, and we need some transparency and accountability by the departments that want to spend our taxpayer dollars. There were 2 amendments. One amendment was more of a technical amendment, changing some verbiage, and also clarifying what some of the definitions were. And the second amendment added a exemption for the Kansas Administrative Procedures Act, Kansas Agricultural Remediation Board. They do not take SGF funds. They're self-funded and they do their own work, and so their members see that. Otherwise, the bill is a good bill, and I ask you to vote for it, and I'll stand for questions.
Does any member desire to speak to the bill? The chair recognizes Representative Provost.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So we had a good discussion in committee, I think, about this bill. And I was going to bring an amendment today, but I will make the points without the amendment and spare you the trouble of having to take another vote and have a whole nother debate. But this bill is very focused through one lens. It looks only at the cost of business. And when there is a regulation or an absence of a regulation, there is a potential cost to a bunch of other groups that I don't think we take into consideration. My belief is in this building, we are far too heavily oriented towards business. And we're always looking out for the interest of business. And sometimes that comes at the expense of other groups of people. I'll tell you a small story about Hutchinson from years ago, where in the 1980s, we discovered a pollution plume that kept moving and migrating towards our water supply and our city water wells. And we had to develop a system that pulled that pollution into a centralized location, pulled the pollution out, treated it through an RO plant. We had to build a deep disposal well to dispose of the pollution at the cost of $35 million. So the absence of a regulation that allowed solvents to be poured into the ground, other chemicals, mostly from heavy industry, created pollution in Hutchinson that cost $35 million, borne by taxpayers and water ratepayers. We can have this conversation about regulations on business, and I think that's a fair conversation to have. And there is a cost to that, and it's a cost worth looking at. But I think we do ourselves a disservice when we pretend that a regulation doesn't also protect another group of people. And we need to have the possibility of looking at that instead of just this blanket, no regulation unless we can prove that it doesn't cost business anything. So the amendment that I would have brought provided for an opportunity for the Director of Budget to do an alternate analysis that said if the absence of this regulation was going to cost more than $1 million in the first 5 years of implementation, then the rule would have to go into effect. I think it's fair if we're going to say that we don't want to unduly burden business. It's also fair to say we don't want to unduly burden taxpayers who then have to pay to clean up the mess of business when they operate in a loosely regulated environment. The other point that I'd like to make is that part of the problem here, we spent a lot of time in this building talking about the rules and regulation process and how onerous it is and how bad it is. We don't always do great work in this building. We have to acknowledge that. We sometimes, and we all know it, send work through that is incomplete. We send work through that we don't fully understand. We send work through that we haven't actually had time to vet all the way. And in that process, we cede part of our legislative authority to the administrative branch of government. If you're unhappy with the rules and regulation process, I would urge you to stop attacking the rules and regulation process and start demanding that we as a body do better work. Because that is the source of the problem. If we send out bad product and the administrators of the legislation we produce are required to produce rules off of that legislation, it's our fault, not their fault. But we're pointing the finger at them when really we're the source of the problem, which I think is fair. The other point, the other amendment that I was going to bring, and I brought this in committee, we should also be honest about part of what this is about. And so aside from the alternative to look at what the regulation would cost, I had also proposed in committee that we just scrap the rulemaking process altogether and allow the Kansas Chamber of Commerce to do it, because ultimately that's what we're after here. Just let the chamber write the rules and decide what they're going to do. You guys didn't respond to that with as much humor as the committee did. Anyway, the point is on this, we can look at the cost of business on any of these regulations, and that's fair. But when we do it at the exclusion of looking at the cost of not having the regulation and the potential cost to taxpayers, and every one of these remediation projects ends up costing taxpayers. That $35 million, that's paid by water rate payers and by federal and state money. We're now, just as an added point, selling water to the city of Yoder from our Hutchinson plant because they're dealing with a pollution plume and they need to pipe water from Hutchinson out there because they can't afford to build their own water treatment plant. Pretty Prairie is another community that had to fought for years and years and years to not have to build a treatment plant, and they're dealing with that. These things cost communities a lot of money, and it's because we're not looking fully at the environment that we're in when we make these regulations. So I won't be supporting this. I don't hate the idea altogether. I just wish that we had a little more robust examination of this when we make these policies, and maybe just when we sent to the agency legislation, we had it a little more nailed down. Thank you.
Is there any further discussion? The chair recognizes Representative Carr.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Would the bringer of the bill stand for question, please? You. I don't know if you would know, but how, what kind of an effect, if any, would this have to do with the regulation? And I'm not sure that you're aware of the chemical spill that took place. They're affectionately calling it the 29th and Grove project in Wichita.
It would not affect that. I'm not familiar with it, but it would not affect that at all because they've already made those rules and regulations.
So if that were to happen again, say tomorrow, if this would be in effect July 2nd, there would be no effect whatsoever?
It would not, because there are already rules and regulations on the books that they have to follow. This is anything new.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Chair.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, Representative, you may close.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Wildlife and Parks was going to completely eliminate deer hunting season 1 year, and had said there was absolutely no economic impact to the state of Kansas. In fact, there would have been a lot. They would have gotten less licensing fees. Hotels would suffer, restaurants would suffer, hunting lodges would suffer, convenience stores would suffer, gas stations would suffer. It would be a big problem. And they chose not to do it, this would make sure that they did it, and it would have to come to us and have to agree to it. So, Mr. Chair, I move that when the committee rises and reports, it reports House Bill 2648 favorably for passage.
You've heard the motion by Representative Wassenaar to report HB 2648 favorably. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. Motion passes. This concludes our general orders. The chair recognizes the majority leader.
Mr. Chair, I move we rise and report.
You've heard the motion to rise and report. All in favor, say aye. Opposed, no. The motion passes.
The clerk will read the committee report.
Mr. Speaker, your Committee of the Whole recommends that Senate Bill 195 be passed, Senate Bills 307 and House Bill 2648 be passed as amended.
The Speaker recognizes Representative Neely to adopt the committee of the whole report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move the adoption of the committee report.
You've heard the motion to adopt the committee report. All those in favor signify by saying aye. All opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the committee report is adopted. Reports to standing committees, the clerk will read.
The Committee on Judiciary recommends House Bill 2781 be amended and the bill be passed as amended. Committee on Insurance recommends Senate Bill 339 be amended and the bill be passed as amended. Committee on Insurance recommends House Bill 338 be amended and the bill be passed as amended. Committee on Insurance recommends Senate Bill 340 be amended and the bill be passed as amended. Committee on Insurance recommends Senate Bill 398 be amended and the bill be passed as amended. Committee on Insurance recommends Senate Bill 356 be amended and the bill be passed as amended. The Committee on Transportation recommends House Bill 2799 be passed.
Is there any objection to returning to that order of business, introduction of bills and concurrent resolutions? Seeing none, the clerk will read.
House Bill 2818 by the Committee on Federal and State Affairs, requested by Representative Laura Williams. An act concerning the legislature relating to legislation pertaining to occupational regulation, providing for a review process and evaluation criteria for the legislature when considering bills that propose new or additional occupational regulation, requiring regulatory entities at the direction of the Joint Committee on Administrative Rules and Regulations to provide a report to the legislature to inform the legislature's consideration of such proposals, authorizing the Joint Committee to contract for such a report when necessary.
Representative Osman replaces Representative Sawyer Clayton on House Federal and State Affairs on Thursday, March 7, 2024. Representative Concanon will replace Representative Blue on the House Committee on Commerce and Labor on March 5th. This appointment will expire at the end of the day on March 5th. Representative Lewis will replace Representative Mon as Vice Chair of the House Committee on Judiciary. This appointment takes effect immediately and is permanent. Are there announcements? The Speaker recognizes Representative Wassinger.
Legislative modernization, there's a meeting at the rail to approve some minutes. Would you please join me? Thank you.
Speaker recognizes Representative Riley.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So legislative Bible study is tomorrow morning. It'll be at 7 a.m. Room 142. So we'll be talking about the 8th chapter of Daniel. And Daniel has a vision, talks about his vision of the ram and his vision of the goat. Very interesting farm legislation going on there. You need to attend, room 142.
Representative Getz.
Mr. Speaker, good morning, body. Tonight is Dodge City night. We'll just invite you to come have a steak with us and let Miss Kitty maybe sit on your lap, rub your head. That's happened over the last couple years, and sing to us. It's a great night. So steak and Dodge City history. Would love to see you there. It's over at the plaza. Thank you.
Representative Stoggsville.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Democrats will have agenda tomorrow morning, 8:30, 152 South. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Representative Oropeza.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem. Wyandotte County Delegation, we will be having a luncheon at 152 South today after recess. Thank you.
Representative Hill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem. Colleagues, if I could get you to address your attention to the gallery over on the east side. I am honored today to have the entire fifth grade class of St. Andrew's School here. And we have a couple students that actually testified in Senate Transportation this morning, Ava Straight and Jack Benton. And we have their principal with us today, Chris Whitehair, and more importantly, their teacher, Mrs. Anguano. In addition to that, we have some chaperones, David Burton and Tracy Jurgensen. Thank you so much for being here, and I appreciate you getting to know the legislative process.
Representative Goddard.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Just a reminder, the Southeast Kansas caucus will meet today at noon in room 582 North.
Seeing no further announcements, the Speaker recognizes the Majority Leader for a motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Before I go into the adjournment, I just want to thank you all for all your emails, well wishes, and prayers. I appreciate it very much. Mr. Speaker, I move the House adjourn until Wednesday, March 6th at 11 a.m.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye. All opposed, no. The ayes have it. We are adjourned.